Welcome everybody back to episode 5 of Bridging Universes with myself, Mr. Jack Steed, and the beautiful Nadine here. I feel like it's been a while since we've actually done one of these. Our lives have been super crazy. I'm now in India. Nadine's back in Europe, although not for long because she's back on her travels again in a few weeks' time. But today we have a bit of a special edition where I am going to speak about my experience in Malaysia being locked in a prison for doing something which could have been avoided if I had just been a little more present. So today, Nadine is going to interview me, and I'm going to speak a little bit about what happened, how I felt, and what I took away from the life-changing experience.
Welcome back, guys, to our new episode where we're going to talk about what happens if your freedom gets stripped away. And I'm very thankful that you are willing to share this experience with all of us, Jack, so that we can all learn a little bit from it. I think it's going to be a very special episode. And I think it's a very nice last episode while I'm in Europe, because indeed we've been gone for a little while because we were both recalibrating. And our next episode might be where we are in the same place.
It's going to be amazing.
But
Who
we'll
knows?
see.
Yeah, that's very exciting.
Only 2 more weeks and I'll be in India. We both have been working on a lot of cool projects. I wrote a book. In the meantime, you've been working a lot. So it's time.
You just throw that out there like it's like, I just wrote a book. Dean said to me, like, I'm going to write a book. And I was like, yeah, okay, go for it. Like, you want to write a book? Go for it. 2
It
months
was
later,
6 weeks ago.
done. 6 weeks, done. Like, she's written a book, everyone.
That's ADHD and hyperfocus.
That's pretty much me. Before we started we hit record, I said to Nadine, my energy today is here, there, and everywhere, which sometimes for podcasts isn't great, but we're here for it.
I'll just put you on the little boxes like, no, we're going to talk about this.
Okay,
So,
you can try.
On that note, do you want to tell us what happened? You went for a little nice business trip of 5 days to Malaysia. You left all of your friends and you were like, oh, I'll see you next week. It's been months now.
Yeah, that's not what happened. So that was the plan, right? I'm going to try and kind of round it up a little bit in 10 minutes, keeping it fairly brief. And then after, I think we're going to go into some more questions and a bit more depth of how I felt and stuff like that. So, as Nadine says, I went on a little jolly to Malaysia to transit to get the new visa for Thailand. Because if you didn't know, as nomads, we have to make sure that we can travel and do the things we want to do. So I went to Malaysia, flew in, spent 5 days in the country, and yeah, spent some time in the city, kind of reset, took some time off from work and just kind of relaxed. So then after the 5 days, I decided I would fly back to Thailand, which was the original plan. Now, as I went through customs, I put my bag through security and they stopped me and were like, there's something in your bag. So I'm like, okay, like I've forgotten maybe a lighter or maybe a weed grinder, something, right? Something that maybe shouldn't be in there. So they then turned the screen to me and showed me what was in my bag, something that shouldn't be in there. I wonder, for some of you listening at home, you could just maybe have a quick think, what could be in my bag that shouldn't be in my bag?
I don't think anyone is going to guess this one.
So in the middle of my bag was a bullet, 9mm Luger bullet from a German pistol. So yeah, long story short, they arrested me in the airport and they took me to the police station where they questioned me.
Give us a little bit of background. Why was there a bullet in your backpack? For anyone listening who is asking the same question as me, why does Jack go around the world with
So basically, when I was in Thailand, I picked up this bullet and thought to myself, sounds so silly when I say this now, oh, I'll make like a necklace out of it. You know, you're a traveler, you pick these things up. I picked up all sorts of stuff, you know, like I found cool rocks, cool bones. I found different coins, like just random stuff. Right? So anyway, so I obviously put this bullet in my bag and I only had like a little carry-on bag. I didn't have my full suitcase and I didn't obviously realize I'd left it in that bag. So then, as I said, they arrested me, took me to the airport police station, which was like an hour away. They transferred me by like 5 police cars. It was kind of really over the top and I was like, wow. Took me to the police station. I was there for 4 days in the police station whilst they were investigating where the bullet came from. They kept asking me, where's the gun? Like, where's the Smith Wesson gun? And I was like, I don't have a gun. I'm just a stupid backpacker with a bullet in his bag. And they said to me, okay, so you're going to be charged with a Section 8 firearms charge. So the British embassy turned up and was like, just so you know, this charge can hold up to 10 years in prison. And I was like, okay, 10 years. And they were like, but we think you're going to get a fine. So then I waited 4 days we're in the police cell. And that was just like a square, like no bed, nothing, just bars. First time ever been locked up in a jail. And I didn't sleep for the first 2 days. Yeah, my mom was going crazy. So then after that, I went to court. I then went to court and my dad had hired a lawyer for me. The lawyer didn't show up in the court. So I went into the courtroom and the lawyer wasn't there. So then they charged me with Section 8 firearms charge and I had to pay £1,000. So that was cool. I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to get out of here finally. So then I got put in the cell again, and basically the lawyer has to come to bail me. So the lawyer has to come to pay for me to get out, but he didn't turn up. So part of the process is if when you don't get bailed, you go to prison till you get bailed. So then they transferred me from the court to Punjab prison. I think just at this point it seemed to get worse and worse. Like it went from like not being arrested to then being arrested and being like, oh, okay, this is quite serious, to then going to court and being like, okay, this is really serious, and then going to prison and then being like, okay, this is like getting more and more serious. So then I went to prison, they checked me in, they shaved my head, they put me in an orange jumpsuit with handcuffs on my hands and feet. They just looked at me like I was just sat there amongst like 100 people and they were all just staring at me. At this point, I was just laughing. Like I literally laughed and they were looking at me like I must have looked crazy because I'm like covered in tattoos, like shaved head, handcuffed feet and hands, which no one else was. In the prison, I was there 5 days. They treated me like really well in the prison, to be fair. Like they put me near the door where the camera was, and all the guards would come and like ask me questions and like speak English to me because they didn't really have a chance to speak much English with people, so it was fun for them, I guess. And then after they released me from the prison, I thought I was going to go home, and then I ended up having to go through an immigration clearance. I thought that was just going to be like, oh, I go to like an immigration place, they check my passport, they see what like happens, and they let me go. This is where it all went a bit wrong. So then I went to the immigration place and one of the guards came through and was like, why are you here? And I explained the situation. He's like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. He's like, you'll be home before Christmas. Like, you'll be home before Christmas. It's like in October. Like, I'm like, what? Like, Christmas? That's like 2 months away. What do you mean, Christmas? He's like, yeah, it'll probably take around 6 weeks. I'm like, just burst out crying on the floor, just like, what the fuck? And yeah, I was there for another 6 weeks in the immigration, literally just under 6 weeks. So yeah, and then I came home a week before Christmas. So I got arrested on October 12th and I got home just before Christmas. So it was like 6 weeks or 7 weeks, the whole thing. And then yeah, got deported back to the UK. So they basically said to me, you can't stay in the country, you no longer have access to visas here, we have to send you home. And yeah, didn't speak to my parents for like 6 weeks. They were obviously twisting their brains and minds because they hadn't heard from me. A lot of people, including Unidine, didn't know anything about what was going on. Like I didn't really tell anyone. I told a select few people and told them to keep it very, very close to them because I didn't want people to worry. I was dealing with it on my own. I was dealing with a lot of stuff on my own. And I didn't need the energy of other people worrying, like I just needed to focus on myself to get myself out of the situation. And yeah, we got through it. And we went home for a few months. And the minute I landed, I was like, I'm going back. Like it didn't stop me. I got straight back on a flight 3 months later, and now I'm back doing what I'm doing again with a hell of a lot more of an understanding of how easy it is to get caught up in a very small situation, which can end up in a very big fuck up, like very, very big. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's kind of what happened. Obviously, there's a lot more to it, and I actually thought the other day, Nadine, that you inspired me actually to potentially write a book about it. About the experience, which I think would be cool in the future. But yeah, the one thing I do want to say after all of that is I would do it again. Like I would do it again because I know that's gonna sound super crazy, and Nadine, your eyes were just like, huh? But I would do it again. It was maybe not under the same pretenses, but I mean without the worry. But because the worry really did cause a lot of emotional torture, should we say? And it kind of was torture at some point, which we'll touch on later. But yeah, I would do it again because it taught me so much. And again, we'll go into those sorts of things of what it taught me. But yeah, immigration camp was horrible, man. There was no beds, like everyone slept on the floor. And like when you see documentaries of people like in prisons in like Asia, when you're literally like slept next to someone like this, like that was me, you know. They gave me literally like one piece of clothes, one jumper, one t-shirt, and I managed to buy some more clothes when I was in there to like cover my head and like to be able to sleep because the lights stay on all night. Crazy, crazy. But yeah, so that's kind of it in a nutshell.
That was obviously a very short summary, but I
Mm.
do think it's very admirable and beautiful that you say you would do it again. And I think that that also speaks for your character and the way you carried yourself through this situation. Because as your friends, we were all obviously very worried, and Jack disappeared, and all we did was like send him a little heart emoji every few days, like, we're still here, we trust you, but we were very worried, and I think that that is nothing in comparison to what you've lived. And from the things that I heard from you, it was really, really rough. But you also really learned a lot. And I just want to say that I'm very proud of you for taking this situation and turning it into a beautiful eye opener, which built a lot of character and a lot of love in your heart, where it would have been very easy to lose a lot of trust and to be really angry.
I definitely was angry at parts, for sure, at myself more than anything. I remember when I turned my phone on when I came back, and the amount of messages I had was like crazy. Like I had hundreds of messages from people. Actually, it was the funniest thing, just quickly, when I got in the airport, when they let me go in the airport and they took my handcuffs off. Like I turned my phone on and literally my phone froze. It was like ding 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 ding. And I couldn't even use my phone for like 5 minutes because it was just like chaos, you know? And I remember picking up the phone, and I remember looking at my phone, and I just could see messages and messages from my mom and dad being like, we love you, stay, like, we're thinking of you, like, all this. I then pressed the dial button on my mum. I actually rang my brother first. Like, I rang my brother because I felt like I needed to, like, ground myself before I rang my mum, because I knew as soon as I rang my mum, I'd just be like, "Ugh," like crying. So I rang my brother was just like, oh my God, like, he was more excited. He was like, oh my God, he's like, I thought it was fake. Like, he said, when I saw your name come up, he was like, I thought it was fake. Like, I didn't understand. And he's like, I'm so happy to hear from you. And I was just like, I got the crying bit out of the way. And then I called my mum, was like, hello. And she's literally like, yeah, even now thinking about it makes me a bit emotional because I remember her voice. Like, you can imagine a mother being separated. I mean, any mother being separated from her child in this sort of circumstance, you can imagine like the feeling she was feeling. So, yeah.
What was the first thing that went through your brain when they turned around the laptop screen? You saw the bullet. You knew this is not good.
No, it was like a heart sinking drop, you know? Like, the feeling of, I just knew I'd fucked up. Like I knew I'd fucked up straight away. And it was no like, oh, I'm gonna lie about it or anything. Nothing like that crossed my mind. Like I owned up to it straight away within seconds. And it probably wasn't the smartest thing to actually do because I maybe should have just said no comment. In that situation, like I didn't realize like the situation I was really in. So I probably should have said no comment. But I instantly was like, yeah, it's mine. Like I have it. Like I know where it came from. And they were kind of, the woman looked at me like, what? Why would you bring this through? Like, why would you do this? And then, yeah, it was this instant heart drop straight away when they sat me down. I rang my dad straight away and was like, Dad, look, like I fucked up, like I made a mistake. He's like, you're in the airport. I'm like, yeah, I don't know, like I've made a mistake. And he's like, what have you done? And I'm like, there was like there's a bullet in my bag. He's like, what? He's like, what do you mean there's a bullet in your bag? I'm like, there's a bullet in my bag. Like I don't know, and what's gonna happen? They're probably just gonna talk to me and arrest me. I don't know. And he was like, just say it's a souvenir and just be honest and just go through, you know, like keep us updated. God knows what they were thinking at this time. Like you'd imagine like what they were going through the whole time as well. And this is one of the things that really like was hard when I was inside it. I knew how I was feeling. I was anticipating how they were feeling. And I'm close with my mum and dad. So I knew it was going to be like a tough process for them. But what I didn't realize is the minute that I actually got arrested, my mum and dad were up like 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning. My dad's on the phone to like lawyers and stuff and going to work. And then he had like a funny turn and stuff like that. So going back to your question, instant reaction was like, oh no. Like I literally remember gulping. Like I remember gulping and being like, oh God. But I try to stay positive in those situations. I'm trying to be as optimistic as possible. And this is one of the things that really taught me is like the expectation. Like in my head, I was like, oh, they're just going to talk to me and I'll be able to get on my flight in 2 hours. I was just like, no, it's going to be fine. Like, it's going to be absolutely fine. I was panicking, but I was trying to breathe, you know, when I was sat there, I was just trying to breathe and calm myself down. It's funny talking about it now brings back, like, I can feel it. Like it brings back like
Yeah.
this, the emotion of it.
It's normal when you talk about big things like this. It is gonna trigger your nervous system. It's gonna bring back memories where you're like, oh, wait, is it still here? And obviously, you mentioned your parents, and I know you have a very beautiful, close relationship to your parents.
Mhm.
How has that changed during those 6 weeks?
Obviously, when I was inside of there, I didn't have any communication with them at all. And as I said, I was thinking about them a lot, like how they would be feeling, what they were doing, because obviously I had no communication with them. So I didn't know, I knew they'd be helping me, but I didn't know if they were succeeding. I didn't know if they were having trouble doing that. So I just had to sort of, you know, trust that they were doing what they could. And I didn't speak to them for like almost 6 weeks. Yeah. This is one of the things that I kind of really realized when I was in there is like not talking to them for that period of time was like I really felt that I was missing them so much. I felt the love that I had for them and was able to understand on a much deeper level the level of love that I do feel for my parents and the loved ones around me, because it was just like the way I can only describe it is if you ever had like someone very close to you, like a boyfriend or a girlfriend or, you know, a family member or something, especially when you get separated from them for a long period of time, you have this huge pain. It's like a missing, you feel in your heart like the love, you feel like them, this huge void, right? And that's kind of what I felt being away from them for so long. And when I saw them again, like I walked through the airport and they always sit at Gatwick. So I knew they would be sitting on this corner. And actually, when I got off the plane and I was walking come through the arrivals, I actually stopped on the corner because I knew they were going to be there. And I had to feel like, I felt like I wanted to compose myself because I didn't want to just turn the corner in a complete mess, you know? And I turn the corner, the first thing I see is my dad. My dad literally just like running at the door. Like, and I remember going through the door, dropping my bag and just falling to my knees. And like, it was one of them moments, you know, like it was something like out of a film. And yeah, my mum was just crying. She couldn't move. Or my dad, literally, I've never felt my dad squeeze me as hard. Like he gives me cuddles, you know, like when, when I need them. But obviously, you know, as typical men, sometimes we don't do that as much and when we should, for sure. But he squeezed me and lifted me off the floor. He said to me, he's like, don't you ever, please don't ever do this to me again. I was like it's my fault, you know, like I had control of this. Like, but yeah, it's brought me a lot closer to them. And even now, when I got back and I said to them, I'm going to be going traveling again, my mum was like, you can't do this to us. Like, you know, I'm going to worry so much. And I'm like, yeah, but like I've learned my lesson. Don't carry bullets on
That's a
planes.
clear lesson. Thank
But,
you.
but yeah, it's brought me a lot closer to them for sure.
And talking about control, because you've been moved around a lot, you had no clue, you didn't speak the language. How
Mm.
did it feel to have zero control? Like, obviously, as well, already starting, like, you don't control what you eat, not what you wear, when you sleep, where you are. You, in a way, kind of lost complete control over your life. How did that affect your mental health, your
Mm.
emotional state? Just how did that affect you?
I think I felt that right from the beginning because the minute they arrested me, I couldn't do anything. Like I was sat in the police station of the airport and they sat me on the floor. Like they didn't even give me a chair. Like they sat me on the floor and they were just questioning me like all the time. Like I must have been asked like 50 times, well, where's the gun? Where's the gun? I was like, I don't have a gun, like, you know, and they were just questioning me. But yeah, the feeling of losing all sense of control. Like I couldn't, obviously the only thing I was in control of is the way that I felt, the way I was controlling my body. And that became something I was very, very good at, something I had to learn to do very quickly. Like I thought I was good at regulating myself and keeping my energy in a good place. But as you can imagine, being told that you're going to be arrested and you're going to prison and all these sorts of things, like, it's very hard to stay like on a balance, to stay balanced. So there were times where I'd lose my shit, times where I'd cry, I was emotional, that I was happy. Like there were times where I was sat there and I was having a laugh with, like having a joke with the officers, you know? And then I would catch myself and be like, wait, why are you joking? Like, why are you laughing about this? Like, you're going to prison, you idiot. Like, why? Like, you can't feel happy. Like, you can't feel joy in these moments, you know? And there was this whole turmoil, sometimes me being like, not trying to feel sorry for myself, you know? Like, and there were times where there were beautiful actual moments during the whole process, but going back to your point, losing control of when you eat, when you get outside, like I wasn't allowed outside for the whole 6 weeks really. I got let out once, I think, for like 10 minutes, and that wasn't like voluntary, it was because they wanted to question me on something. So yeah, you don't get control of what you eat, what you do inside. We had in like the prison and the immigration camp, we had no like games, no color, like no pencils, no paper, nothing to entertain yourselves in a way. Like it was just sleep and try to talk. Obviously, there were not many people in there that spoke fluent English, so that was like tough. But yeah, like control wise, well, until it's taken away, you don't really realize how powerful it is to be able to just take a drink, to be able to lay down, to be able to open the fridge and go and get a drink. Like we take so much for granted, and that's one of the things that really taught me so much was quite what I do take for granted. Even just eating like the most simple food. We were fed rice with like some fish that really wasn't nice. I had to eat with my hands for the first time on a tray, you know? He literally gets thrown on the tray and then you have to like eat it with your hands. And the funny thing was is they would when I would do it, they would laugh at me. Like all the people were laughing at me, like look at this guy, like he can't do it. You know, and there's me trying to like you know? But yeah, when you lose control it's not a nice feeling. But when I got it back, wow. For the first time when I got left and they left me in the airport and they literally left me in the airport and were like, bye. But the weirdest thing was is when we were in the airport, the same guards that took me to the airport were the same guards that would come to the cell each day. And when they came to the cell each day, they would scream and they would like hit the cage and they would like scream at people and I was always like, why you used to be so horrible? Hey. And then when we went to the airport, the same people were the nicest people. Like they treated me so well. They were like talking to me and I explained to them, I was like, I'm just a traveler. They were like, do you have TikTok? I showed them my TikTok and they were like, we didn't even realize you're TikTok. We sat there and spoke for like 2 hours on just like normal human beings. Bearing in mind when they walked me through the airport, they walked me through the airport like surrounding me. Like it was like, and I went to the check-in desk in handcuffs. Everyone's looking at me like, what the hell? And they put me on the flight and they were like, bye bye. And that was the minute I was just like, whoa. Like I stood there, I had my passport in my hand, I had my phone in my other hand, and I had nothing. I had no clothes. I didn't have my bag because they left my bag in the police station. So I had no belongings. So I just stood there with my passport and my phone. And I just stood there like, oh my God, like I'm free. Like I'm actually free. And I just sat down and I just burst out crying. And then for like 3 or 4 people came over and they were like, everyone okay? Like, and I couldn't even talk. Like I couldn't even explain to them how I was feeling. I was just crying and crying and crying. We don't realize how lucky we are to have the freedom we have. If you're sitting here now listening to this on your phone, on your iPad, on whatever you're listening to it on, right? You have so much freedom, which is so precious. So yeah, never take it for granted that you're able to do the things you are.
How did it make you feel to see a guard switch so much from how they were behaving? Because it is something I think a lot of us know that everyone is capable of doing terrible, terrible things if we're put in a specific situation. At least that is something I truly believe in. And I feel like that is also something that we really have to make peace with, that we cannot see people as monsters because in specific situations we would do the same. But having guards being so nice to you while you've obviously seen them use violence, be terrible human beings, so to say. How did that make you feel? What did that teach you?
I think it showed me that I mean they're just doing the job, right? Like they're just there to do their job. There was one situation where it'd been like 3 weeks and I hadn't heard a single thing. I hadn't heard a single thing from my parents, from the embassy, from anybody. And there was a morning where I kind of every day I'd been going to the guards at the beginning of the day and saying, "Look, can I have some information?" And they would just say to me, "No, just wait. You need to wait. You need to be patient every day. No, no information, no information, no information." Then one day I just decided that I'd had enough of waiting and I kind of tried to push like the information, right? I kind of tried to get some information out of them. And in the end, what I did is I just like, they put on this hard shell, like this, they shout and they're kind of like, they have their batons and like they dress like army people and, you know, they bang on the cage and this kind of stuff. And that never really phased me. Like and I'm not just saying that, like generally it never really phased me because I kind of saw through that. I kind of just saw like, you're just doing a job, you know? And there were situations in there where actually some of the people in there had been beaten up by the security, right? So I knew that they carried some sort of, you know, this power in, I guess, a way. But one day I basically lost it, and I went to the in the morning. I went to like the cage, and I asked very nicely, I want some information, please, today. And he said to me, I told you yesterday. You need to wait. And with that, I completely lost it. Like 3 weeks of anger and pain and like frustration just came out. And I started punching the cage. I was like almost like frothing and like spitting at the guard, like trying to grab him through like the cage. And he literally was just like, "Oh." He's like, okay, 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 okay. And he ran off, came back, and he was like different person. He was like, okay, Mr. Steed. He's like, this is what's gonna happen. Like, this is you're coming out in 2 days' time, blah blah blah. And I was like, they just play this trip, right? This power trip, which obviously they have to do to keep everybody in, like, in line, you know? And for sure, there were some people, like some of the guards would come to me and they would like speak to me nicely. Like, they'd come and ask me questions like, what football team do you support? Like, do you need anything extra? Like, do you need cigarettes? Do you need tobacco? Do you need a mobile phone? You know? Like, they would ask me these sorts of things. But yeah, they definitely play a role, and it kind of showed me that sometimes we see this front in people and it's not actually who they are underneath. Like, they just play this character, right? But I feel like people do this in life as well, not just in jobs, you know? Like, they feel like they need to play a role. They feel like they need to be somebody that they aren't to be accepted. And I guess it just shows that actually we can't sometimes take people face value. Like, we need to get to know them underneath kind of the mask and the the outfit they put on every day when they wake up, right? Like, can I imagine when they go home to their families, they're probably really nice people, you know? But as soon as that uniform goes on, as soon as we put that mask on, we become different people and we become people we aren't. So it taught me to always see through that and to get to know the person behind it rather than just judging them straight away.
Thank you. And obviously, you being English in a Malaysian prison, do you feel like you were treated differently because you were a foreigner? I mean, there is always a little difference in every country, let's be real. Like, even in the UK, they treat different nationalities differently. How
For
did you
sure.
feel like in Malaysian prison you were treated differently than a Malaysian person?
I mean, from the get-go, when I went to every point I went through, anyone that's traveled, you know, they kind of see white people as like, they're kind of interesting, you know, like, especially when I was in Goa recently, I'd walk down the beach and I'd get asked for photos constantly. People come up to me like, take photo, like I'm some sort of celebrity, you know, but it's not, it's because they're just very interested in you, you know? But no, when I went to the prison, kind of asked, they kind of, I remember when we first went into the prison, I walked into the cell and they were so like receptive. Like, when I walked in, they all crowded round me and they were like touching me and they were like looking at my tattoos and stuff, and like they were asking me where I was from, and then I said UK, I'm from England, and they were like jumping in the air like, UK, white man, like UK, you know? And I was just like, I'm there like, what? Like, I felt like an alien, you know? Like, they'd never seen me before. And then when I went to the prison, the same again, they would ask me questions. They were very nice. They weren't like, they weren't abusive or anything. I feel like they did respect me more because I was English, I guess. Like, I did feel that when I was, especially was in the prison, because they would give me more food. People were just coming up to me, giving me things, you know, like extra soap, extra toothbrush, these kind of things. And when we went to the immigration camp, before they take you in, they line you up outside and they like strip you off naked in front of everybody. And you're stood against this wall, like hands in the air, like legs stretched. And they're shouting at you and stuff, and they were shouting at me, and then the guy comes up to me and he like taps me on the shoulder with his baton. He's like, hey, where you from? Where you from? And I was like, oh, like England. He goes, oh, England. He goes, where from? I said, like near London. He goes, oh. He's like, Chelsea Football Club. And this time I'm like, yeah, like I love Chelsea, like I love Chelsea. He's like, okay. He's like, get dressed, like put your clothes on. Everyone's looking like what? Like, he's like, come here, like sits you on the side. They says, you need anything, you let me know. Like, so from the get-go, it was kind of like evident that they were going to kind of look after me. And then when I went into the cell in the immigration camp, it was a very different story to the prison, because in the prison they were very receptive. But when I went into the immigration place, it was a complete different vibe. Like, these are people that have been in there for years. Like, this immigration camp had people in there that had been in there for like 6 years. So I walked in and they're all laid down on the floor and it was just eyes. Like, there was no getting up coming to see me. So that was a very unnervy feeling, because when I walked in, I was like, well, this is a different place. Like, this isn't the same place as the prison. Like, this was like very different energy. And it was like, I remember sitting on the side before I went in, looking inside, and I felt this like nervous system was like, no, 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 like, and yeah, it was dark. It didn't smell nice. Like I could just see loads of bodies. Like for the space, there was just so many people. I was like, this can't just be it. Like that can't be just be where everyone's staying. And the minute I walked in, like that was the second realization. I was like, oh my god. And when the door shut, it was just like, ooh, whoa. My nervous system was completely dysregulated. I couldn't speak. I couldn't even walk. I just froze, you know, like I just froze in one spot. And I was kind of trying to like breathe and trying to take it in. And then someone came up to me and was like, hello, like come sit, come sit. Like sat down and luckily spoke English, which was nice. Obviously, because otherwise I would have had no chance of understanding anything.
I
Yeah.
think you gave us beautiful examples of what happened. Speaking about the immigration camp, how was it to deal with the uncertainty? Because while in prison, you knew, like, oh, I have to pay a fine, and they were helping you. And afterwards, you had 3 weeks until
Mhm.
you got angry, in which you knew nothing. What did that do to, like, you as a person? And what did that teach you that you still can see in your own behavior and how you feel?
I guess the uncertainty of it was like, I think after sort of like a few days, well, to be honest, like the minute I got arrested, I kind of was like, okay, like, you know, I've been on a journey for the last few years of understanding that when things happen, they happen for a reason. I'm very much of the mind of like, okay, like, I know this is a shit situation to be in, but let's try to see the positives in what we're doing. Let's try to put a positive spin on it. So the first few days were very like volatile in my mind because obviously I'd never been arrested, I'd never been in trouble, I'd never had anything like that. So it was uncertainty, not knowing, but I was like just accepting. I was like, okay, like let's just see what happens. I can't change what's happening. I can just be as honest as I can and just pray. I prayed a lot in the first few days because I kind of felt like there was nothing I could do. So I started to pray. I started to speak into the universe. I started to speak positively about the situation, you know, to try to put myself in a positive state rather than focus on the negatives. We know that by focusing on negatives, you only attract more negative energy. So I try to be positive around it. Like, okay, cool, we're in this cell. Like, let's walk, you know? The first 2 days in the prison cell, I must have walked for like probably 12 hours, you know? And I started to do press ups. I started to work out a lot, like a lot. I tried to be positive of what was happening. And the further I got into the situation, because obviously it started in the airport, then I got arrested, then I went to the police cell. Then I went to the prison. Then I went to the immigration camp. So each time I was like, someone was saying, oh, you're going to be let out next week. Like, you're going to be going. I would look forward to that and I'd work so hard to get there and be like, right, today's the day. I'd get up. I'd be positive. Like, I'd get ready. And then suddenly, bam, it was, and that taught me about expectation, you know, having expectations of a situation and not just being present with it, not allowing it to just be as it is and just see what happens and accept whatever comes. I was expecting to be let out. I was expecting to go home. I was expecting to do all these things. And every time I expected, it got worse. Every time I thought I was going to go home, it got worse. And it wasn't until the end when I was in the actual prison, the immigration camp for like after about a week and a half, I just accepted that, okay, like this is my life now. Like I'm going to be in here. Could be a year, could be 2 months, could be 2 days, but this is where we are right now. So let's try to just do the best we can. So I got friendly with the guy that ran the cell. So I started to do things in the morning, like I started to help out with the food and I started to help out with like cleaning and doing stuff like that. Because one, it gave me stuff to do, and two, they gave me more food. They gave me more like tea when it came in the morning, more biscuits, stuff like that. So yeah, I started to really switch from the negative mindset of like, okay, like why is this happening to me, poor me, to okay, like let's just try do the best we can in the situation. I feel like in them situations, you can only do what you can do in those moments, you know, like it's kind of this innate sort of like animalistic kind of response where you just, your body you're in constant fight and flight, right? So like my whole nervous system was dysregulated the whole time. Like I don't know where I am. I don't know who I'm sleeping next to. I don't know what I'm eating. Like it was dirty. Like I didn't want to drink the water. I didn't want to get sick. Like I didn't want to really speak to people. I didn't want to sleep next to certain people. Like all of these things, right? So my nervous system was constantly fight and flight. So really, your body it just takes over, and you just do what you need to do to survive. You do what you need to do to stay safe, and your nervous system does that for you. Like it was mad how I was only sleeping like 2 hours a night, but my body was like I had energy. Like my body was kind of dealing with it in a way because it was like, okay, like you're not going to sleep because it's dangerous, and we don't want to be fully asleep because we don't know what's going to happen. So in the morning, it would just give me more energy. Like I just have lots of energy for like 3 or 4 hours, and then I would sleep. I'd have someone watch my stuff when I was sleeping, and yeah, the uncertainty. Going back to your question, like I said, you kind of just have to deal with it. Like there's not really much you can do apart from just do what you're told in those situations, try to get on with everybody, and yeah, and just try to get through it as best as possible. But yeah, so funny. Every time I talk about it, more comes up and like more comes out. And I'm still now, what, 6, 7 months still integrating what's, happened and the things that I've learned from it. And even now, I still get these realizations. I get triggered by certain things, especially going through the airport. When I first left and went through the airport, and my nervous system was like, whoa, like what's going on? I started having really hot flushes, and I was like really super hot, nervous, anxious. So I just had to breathe and just try to get through it the best way. But now it's easier. Like I hear different things. Sometimes I see different like things that trigger me or remind me of the situation. And it's never really like a bad trigger, that sort of emotional trigger. It's more of just something like it's like a flashback. Like it like takes me back, and it's like my eyes are open but I'm not there, and I have this like flashback for a couple of seconds, and then it comes back. So it's like I get to relive it in certain ways.
I think
But
that's a
yeah.
very, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not saying you have trauma, but I do think that this is a very common experience when we've experienced anything big. It can be as huge as the story you're telling now, or something smaller that it's is in our body, it's in our nervous system, and there are just certain triggers that will either bring up memories or our body is going to respond in like a way that you're like, what's going on? That is very normal, and I think that it's very beautiful. Like every time we speak about it, it does come up, like you're not walking away from it, which is a very common response of being like, oh, I'm feeling this way, I'm just gonna ignore it, I'm gonna run away. But I really appreciate and I respect in you that you're like, okay, I'm feeling this way, what does it teach me? At the same time, it can be really rough. Like having our nervous system dysregulated can have a lot of physical and emotional effects on you. Being dysregulated for a long time can also have effects. So I was actually gonna ask you, in what way do you still feel like your nervous system can be on edge, or what did you do to bring your nervous system back to a more balanced state?
Okay, so when we find ourselves in like you said, our nervous system's dysregulated, that can manifest in ways like anxiety, right? Or we can have panic attacks, we can have discomfort, we can have change in body temperature, paralysis, all these different things, right? And that's just a sign that our nervous system is not dealing with things how it could best deal with things, right? So for me, the best thing that I always do is, the number one thing for me is just to become aware of your situation, become aware of where you are, because the nervous system's reaction is based upon previous situations or previous experiences that your nervous system's gone through, and is now developed a coping mechanism to deal with the same situation that arises again. So if we've been through a situation before and we should be scared of it, or we're very scared of it, our body will then do that again in the same situation. So for me, what I tend to do is just to notice that I'm not in danger. Like I'm not in a situation that I'm going to get hurt, I'm unsafe, and just try to breathe. Like the main thing is to breathe for me, to be aware of where I am, what I can see, what I can smell, be aware of my senses, and to basically reassure the body that I'm safe and everything's okay. And this happens in a lot of people's lives day to day. Like people get triggered about certain things, or people find themselves in situations which feel uncomfortable, where they walk into a room with people maybe they don't want to see, or they find themselves in a tricky situation. The best thing you can really do is to try to really just center and ground yourself by just breathing. Right. And you can do that by literally just being aware of your breath moving in and out. Right. There's many different breathing exercises, but as humans, we don't tend to breathe with awareness a lot of the time. We do it subconsciously. So when we actually do think about the breath, and we think about inhaling for a certain time, and then we hold, and then we exhale, or even just being aware of the movement of in and out, right? So in through your nose, out through your mouth, or vice versa. Just being aware of you actually filling your body with energy, or filling your body with, breath, is going to actually enable your nervous system to be like, okay, like we're back on our body. We're here. Like we're in control. It's fine. It's cool. Like we're okay. We're gonna do this. So yeah, you can breathe in for like 7 seconds and then you can hold and then breathe out. For people that don't know, you can just be aware of your breath, be aware of your surroundings. Yeah, and you're in charge. You're in control of your body at all times in those situations, right? And your body, when it gives you these warning signs, when it's giving you like, oh my god, like we're in control. We can control that, and we're actually the ones. Our bodies is the ones doing this crazy, dysregulation, but actually we can control it by just breathing. So yeah, I took a lot of conscious breaths during that time, like many, many conscious breaths. But yeah, what about you? How do you do that? How do you regulate your nervous system when you feel like that?
I would love to bring one nuance in first, which is that it is completely normal for us to sometimes feel dysregulated, get anxiety, be panicking, because I feel like a lot of times we see it as weak or wrong, or we're afraid of it and we try to ignore it. I would love to just be very clear that it's so normal that if you experience something, that it is big for you and you're gonna have an emotional or a physical reaction, and that is totally okay. You're
Yeah,
not weak, you're not wrong
yeah,
for having a reaction. You're simply human experiencing feelings.
mm,
And nowadays, it's so normal to numb ourselves, either through substances, through addiction to work, to a lot of other stuff. I think that that was just something I wanted to say because I also know from experience, like, yes, conscious and calm breaths can be a game changer. I love it. At the
mhm,
same time, there are also people who maybe in the first moment that they are gonna take conscious breaths and breathe calmly, it's gonna be like a volcano exploding. I remember when I first started meditating, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be Zen now. And I can tell you, for the first year that I meditated, I think I cried every time and I did it every day. I was an uncontrollable, like, sobbing because there was so much build up tension and so much stuff that is gonna come up. So I do always want to, like, point out that it's okay if things come up and that you should absolutely always reach out for help, whether it is to
yeah,
a professional that you trust or someone you love, because you're not crazy for having those experiences. And it's just super normal for more emotions to come up the moment that you start feeling.
I
That
like
being
that.
said, what do I do to regulate myself? I think for me, it is more about moving than it is about sitting still and taking deep breaths. Because I
Hmm.
know that if I get in a state where I lose control of my brain, my emotions keep going. If I'm gonna sit and sit still, I'm genuinely gonna explode. When I go for a walk, for example, I will go
Mm,
to for a walk super angry, super upset, and maybe 10 minutes in, I'll be laughing and I'm like, life isn't
yeah,
that bad after all. Or when I'm
hmm,
not in a position that I can go for a walk in nature, I will dance or I will move my body just to, like, move the energy, move the emotion, because there is a lot of strength in awareness. But there is even more peace and calm for me in expressing it by movement through the body. Because
mm.
even for someone who is really good with words, if I can say that myself, sometimes it's just too difficult to express your emotions. And it's easier to move the body and allow the body to express the emotions. So I would say move your body, but in a gentle way.
But
Um,
yeah, moving your body's a
mm,
good one. I always go for a walk, like especially because it's just energy, right? Like especially like when you get dysregulated, you just need to move. Often some people will find themselves maybe sat in bed, like or sat down, and you're sitting in a space, or you're in a space where your head and your brain is going all these thoughts going around. You're uncomfortable, you can't move, you feel sad, you feel emotional, you feel all of these emotions. And it's not just when times when you're triggered. Like we need to do this all the time, right? Like we need to move. We need to actually move our bodies, because by moving our bodies, we allow to create the movement. Like if you're just sat stagnant, obviously the energy is not moving. Like we need to be able to move, engage in some sort of practice, whether it be going to the gym, going for a run, walking, dancing, like anything that just moves your body. Like it's so, so important. And I feel like it's really good to highlight that.
I do feel like it's important to note that we have to move consciously, because it's so often like when someone is angry, they're like, oh, I'm gonna go to a boxing class, and they're gonna go all out. And especially if there are a lot of emotions, it's gonna give you a rush of energy, which can be like harmful to the body. So you have to do it in a
Mm.
way that you know for a fact that you're not going to cause yourself like a lot of injuries. It's not going to be too much on the body because, as everything, we have to use moderation. And especially if there are a lot of thoughts in our brain, if there are a lot of feelings, we can use movement as kind of like a punishment for the body as well. Like when we're really angry at ourselves, instead of being like, "Oh, I'm gonna walk for a little bit. I'm gonna calm myself down," we can be like, "I'm such a fuck up. I'm gonna go for a run of 10 kilometer." Like that is harmful to the body, and you're doing it
Yeah.
to help yourself. You're not doing it to punish yourself. I would love to ask you one last question. It's kind of like around that.
What people don't know is you've already actually done this once. There's so many different layers to what the experience. I mentioned, I touched on a few, and to be honest, I really want to say how grateful I truly am for it because it changed my life in a way that now I appreciate the smaller things around me. I appreciate the life that I do get to live. You know, I could be inside a prison right now for 10 years, and there's people that are there. You know? And I really sympathise with the lads that are still there, that are locked up there. These are people just wanting to live their lives. You know, they're just people that didn't have any papers or didn't have any documentation for fleeing a country of war. You know, like they fled a country of war for a better life to stay alive because they're being persecuted and murdered for the religion that they hold, which is happening around the world so much. And just to show gratitude, you know, for how grateful I am of this experience and that I managed to get out. But as I said, it taught me so much. I'd do it again because it taught me like more than anything that I've ever been through. Like the experience taught me more in 6 weeks than it was dark at times, you know. It was super dark. Like, there were days where I dissociated. There were days where I didn't want to carry on. There were days where I just stared at a wall. You know, like my brain had gone through so much and was going through so much that my brain decided to just be like, nope, no more. There's too much overload. We can't. We're too overwhelmed. We're too stimulated in a way that we can't cope with. So what does the brain do? Just shuts off. So I literally was just staring at a wall, you know, and like became immobile. Like I didn't move for a couple of days. I was just staring at a wall. It wasn't until people came up to me and were like, look, you need to move. Like you need to do something. And like you say, we need to move. You need to get the body moving. Like you're just sitting doing nothing. So yeah, so that's it in a nutshell. For anyone that wants to know any more, just yeah, you can always reach out and ask me questions. When I came back, my parents were like, do you want to go through some therapy for this? Like, do you want to maybe go and speak to a psychiatrist about this?" And I was like, No, no, like I've been dealing with it myself. You know, I'm sure there's, you know, you never know that in the future maybe something may happen or some things may come up, but I have the good people around me and the people around me that I know I can speak to about it. And I've written a lot about it. I've acted it out. I've sung about it. I've done, you know, loads of stuff to express it. So, actually have a film coming out about it. So, on my birthday, the trailer will come out. It's actually like a small production that me and a friend have done in India. It's super cool. It's about my journey, not just through the prison journey, but actually my journey through life and my spiritual journey,
And it's
which is
really
going to be
cool.
super fun. It's a good way to express, like, it's actually, yeah, it's been challenging at times, but it's actually really fun. So that the trailer is going to be out on my birthday, July 23rd, and then the film will be out later in the year. It's like a half an hour film, but it's based around spirituality, based around substance abuse, expression, depression, joy, happiness, everything. But it's called The Nothingness. So yeah, I'm super excited for people to see that.
Thank you for sharing so beautifully with us and for all the lessons you've shared. Because lucky for us, we get to learn from what you've learned without actually having the experience.
Mm,
And I also think it's so beautifully to always realize, especially us coming from European countries, how much
mhm,
privilege we have and how lucky we are to be free and how
mm,
lucky we are to have the money to do what we want to do and to have the opportunities to do what we want to do.
mhm.
I'm gonna take your moment of shine.
Yeah, wait, we could do this.
He's
So
actually
yeah.
playing with his dapper right now. So if you're listening on Spotify, you can't see it. Go to YouTube to watch it. Film is gonna be super, super cool. I've seen some of the clips and it looks amazing. I'm very excited to see it. And to wrap this whole conversation up, because we've been going for quite some time, I wanted to circle back to being present because you brought yourself in this situation by not being that present.
Yeah.
And you've learned to be present in very rough situations.
Mhm.
How does that reflect on your life right now? And how do you feel about being present?
Yeah, I'm super present. now. My life is presence. Like, I don't really think too much ahead. I don't really think too far behind. I don't really plan so much. I just do what I want to do. I just be. I just allow things to come, right? And I think in that situation where I was in the what happened, if I just checked my bag, like you said, if I just been more present and been like, maybe I should check my bag before I go just to make sure, I would have not been in the situation that I was in. But when you travel, and this is an excuse, it is an excuse actually, when you travel, you become complacent. You become a little bit like lazy, a little bit like, oh, it's not going to happen to me. Like, I don't need to do this, you know? You're just kind of free spirited and whatever. So it taught me with little things. And don't get me wrong, since then I've made little mistakes. I have had times where I've done something like I've forgotten my keys, right? Because I put them down somewhere and I haven't checked my bag before I've left. And there's little things like this that I'm like, actually, these are the little things. Huh?
It's like you're still a human.
Yeah, still human, exactly. I'm still human. And yeah, I make mistakes. We all make mistakes, right? But if we can be more present and we can just be a bit more with it, you know, we don't fall into these little traps sometimes. And for sure, you know, like it was a big price to pay. Like not checking my bag, ended up me not seeing my parents for 8 weeks and being shunted through the Malaysian prison system, you know? Now for people that don't understand, some people may not even know what presence is, you know? It's just about realizing where we are right now in this moment, very moment, right? Like what are we doing right this second, and being aware of our surroundings, you know? Not being sidetracked or not being daydreaming whilst doing something else, you know? Like how many of us drive our car to work and don't even remember driving? And they're on the phone or they're listening to someone else talk. And those are the times we can get into trouble. So, yeah, definitely learned a huge lesson to be more present and just take a bit more time when I'm making decisions and doing stuff like that. Trust me, now when I fly, I check my bag. Check my bag 3 times before I got on the plane.
I think that I can speak for myself and a lot of beautiful people around you who I'm lucky to know that we're all just really, really proud of you. And we're all really happy to know you and to see how much you grow in such a short amount of time. It's beautiful. Let's end this episode with the note that we'll probably circle back to this topic many more times, and that's
Yeah.
totally okay. But now you guys have the ground base of this story.
Yeah.
And give us one last big lesson that you want to give to all of us as the last kickoff of this episode.
One last thing. I think genuine gratitude for the fact we get to live this life, you know? Like, we take so much for granted, like, we really do. Like, there's so much going on in the world right now. And as I said before, if you're sitting at home or you're sitting somewhere nice with a pair of headphones listening to this, just check in with yourself and just realize how grateful you are, because when you're in situations like being in prison or being in Gaza right now or being in places like this, that all these stuff's happening around the world, you know, they don't have the privileges that you have right now. So just be grateful for every single thing. That would be my final message for everybody. Thanks for listening, everyone. Episode 5, what are we going to talk about next? Your book? Or
Oh, we could.
we could do a book podcast talking about your book. That would be nice.
That will be another big topic,
Want to
actually.
give a little? Do you want to give a little teaser on your book or not?
So, I came back to the Netherlands and I jokingly said, I'm gonna write a book. And a week later, I found myself with a book deal and I wrote a book on sexual violence. Yeah, it's gonna be out in 3 months, which is insane.
I know.
But
So
it's
quick.
also really exciting for me to have included like my studies I did in university with human rights, with my spiritual side, which I never expected to come together this beautifully.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for being your beautiful, amazing selves. Hope you're having the best day you possibly can.
Have an amazing day, and thank you so much for listening.
Goodbye. Mwah, mwah,
Bye.
mwah, mwah. Au revoir.